Hi, Dondi.
Hello.
All right, do you want to go first or do you want me to?
Sure, yeah. I don't mind going first. So recap what we learned. I guess we started off with doing some more of the Python stuff. So doing a little more with kind of like the animation stuff and also kind of how the syntax is different between Python and JavaScript, and it's more, it's more precise about the indentation and the coding and stuff like that. Then we did a little bit with the game. I thought that was interesting, kind of trying to figure out both sides of the computer programming for, finding a certain number, and then also us programming that the back way. And then the HTML and CSS combined with the JavaScript, so like that web page aspect of it. I thought it was nice to be able to have two different ways to approach the game building assignment that we're starting up. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I definitely have been enjoying Python a lot more than the JavaScript stuff that we're learning. I think it comes a little bit more naturally, like it makes more sense to me, and I think I really like the Replit way of working rather than the like Khan Academy stuff that we've been doing. I'm really, really excited about the game assignment going forward. I had a lot of fun in class making both versions of the game and just kind of messing around to see what that could do. I think that was something that was really interesting for me. The HTML stuff was a little harder for me to grasp than I thought it was originally going to be. So I think that's probably just because it's brand new. But it seems like a lot more different than like Java and JavaScript and Python. I feel like had a lot of really similar like syntax that you could do that way. But the HTML and CSS seem not as like, I don't know, they don't seem to go together so easily.
Yeah, you kind of have to individually build them out in different ways, like the JavaScript and the HTML for sure.
So that's the combination of those is definitely something that is a little bit difficult for me to grasp right now, but I think going forward it'll probably be a little bit easier. But I've been really liking the Python stuff lately.
Yeah, I think the Python, it was a little bit difficult for me at first to think of how the animation worked in Python, whereas you're not just calling commands, you're literally drawing it out, because I think I'm more quantitative minded, that it was a little hard for me to think of, it's actually taking this path and then you're repeating that path over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the HTML and JavaScript I found a little harder with learning how those go together. And it's kind of a whole new thing with the paragraph mark, for example, of inserting individual things, because the computer will just run it. But you actually have to think of what each individual thing you want. And obviously
when it starts, when it stops.
Right. And obviously once you have a good command of it, it could help you make stronger programs and stuff. But I think learning that in that new sort of language and that each thing has to be done individually is something that I'm still learning.
It feels to me a lot like JavaScript, to equate them with actual linguistic languages, JavaScript and Python both feel like Romance languages. They have the similar bases, sure. And once you get one, it's easier to pick up the other. Mm-hmm. But this, the HTML and CSS,
it's like Russian.
Yeah, exactly. It's totally different than the stuff that we've become familiar with. And so I think that's interesting. I think the application of the HTML stuff is probably going to be the most relevant to what I'm going to be doing in the future. But it also seems like it's the most difficult for me to pick up right now.
For me, it's I'm kind of starting to think about what I'm starting to work on the game, so I'm thinking about what language I want to use, or how I want to integrate the different ones. So considering how HTML or JavaScript could work in with Python, or kind of how they're different, or might be worse or better for the game, is kind of interesting, because obviously they can all have the same net output, but how you're getting there with the different functions is kind of a consideration.
Yeah.
And whether or not you want graphics, for example, or anything like that.
What are you thinking about doing for your game?
I think I want to do Python, but then maybe work in some sort of JavaScript element. I don't know really, I guess because I know a lot of things have multiple languages integrated, so I don't know if I necessarily have the skills to be able to use multiple languages in the same program or anything. So I would say Python. Yeah, so I was thinking about stylizing text, for example, or stuff like that.
Are you doing one of the fiction ones or a card game?
Yeah, I think I'm going to do a fiction, a simple choose your own adventure type game, obviously.
That's super fun.
Yeah, so kind of off the Dungeons and Dragons model, maybe.
Sam and I are doing something similar, but I think we're going to do a cooking show.
Oh, that's awesome.
With Dungeons and Dragons sort of style stuff.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah, I think we're working out kind of just the complexities of it. I think I would really like to do it in Python, but I think it would be really cool to see if that can go with JavaScript, because I think the actual graphical side of JavaScript is easier for me, like you were saying, to be familiar with than drawing the actual individual lines in Python. So if we wanted to get some like basic graphics to go with our
Right,
game or
for
anything
sure.
like that. If we wanted to do that, if there's a way to combine Python and JavaScript, I feel like that's what I would want to do, but I don't know
Yeah.
how that would work. So
And
that would be a question I would have if those two can actually go
Yeah,
together
for
or
sure.
not.
I agree with that. That's definitely true. I think also for me, kind of figuring out how obviously what we've done in the past has kind of just been you want to draw this, so you start with a head and then you just work your way down. When you're making something like a game, you probably want to give yourself tools early on by like declaring variables. So kind of being able to have a really flushed out idea of what you want to make and then translating that. Like that's obviously why we learn multiple languages, translating that from your idea of what you want it to look like into the most effective way to do it so that like you have a lot of flexibility with your variables and yeah.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing for me is going to be one, Python, for as easy as it is coming to me, I still feel like I don't know as many of the functions as I did in JavaScript. So learning and kind of getting familiar with those for the game, I think is probably something that's going to be a bit of a struggle with me. That and then just we're both doing a similar kind of game and all of the different like potential paths and how to code for, okay, if they do this and then going down that route and then being like, okay, if they don't, going down that route and like the branchingness of it is like a little bit overwhelming to me, I think at this point.
On the note of that branching idea, I think it's definitely true that like you don't want it to just be there's an initial option and then two more and then it just goes out forever because then by the end, like by your 6th or 7th step, you're coding like 64 options. Like you want to be able to reskin certain things or say like, okay, well maybe make slight changes.
Give the illusion of choice.
Right, exactly. Or I mean even the illusion of choice and also like not having to redo things 60 more times, like maybe multiple paths lead to this or that.
Yeah.
So kind of working out that network and then how those are related, like because obviously you have to use, if-else statements or kind of be able to build the relationship and then translate that into code to something that like I don't know exactly how I'll do. So that's a question I have about like the future.
Yeah, I think the biggest question that I would have is just like how to avoid, like how to create this good game, but kind of on a similar note, avoid being overwhelmed with the, I guess, possibilities of it all. That and then the question of like how to get those two languages of JavaScript and Python to work together if that's a possible thing that we are able to do. Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like our respective recaps that we're on a similar page.
Yeah, for sure. I think that like the intricacies of I'm interested to see what you do with like the cooking show idea. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, it should be interesting. We talked about having this mechanic where you have to like go to a certain amount of like market stalls to buy ingredients.
Okay. That's cool.
But we were talking about it yesterday, and just the possibilities of it is like so incredibly overwhelming. So I think that's definitely something we're trying to figure out how to like give that illusion of choice and like how they have like an ability to choose between these different paths and like feel like they're having an impact on the game. Without it kind of being too much for us.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one thing too is like you don't want to say like you establish like, oh, this is an open world game, and then it's just like yes or no answers, right? So like having your scope and finding that scope is good. Whereas also like you want to have the opportunity to keep building. So I think that also ties back like when we were doing our animation stuff, like you don't want to just draw everything individually. You want to give yourself the tools to make those changes later, kind of be dynamic.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the biggest thing is being dynamic with it.
For sure.
But yeah, I would say my biggest questions for this last 2 weeks are just kind of generally, I feel super unfamiliar with the stuff that we were doing yesterday. It was just like, for whatever reason, it was like harder for me to grasp than the normal stuff that we had been doing. And then any like advice on going forward and making that game not being too much.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. I think I have some questions about HTML. I think my main thing right now is kind of how to be most efficient about mapping the story possibilities, but also, obviously not drowning yourself in coding for every possible thing, of being efficient with what you're writing in and how you can use those tools most effectively, like throughout your game with variables and stuff.
Yeah. So I think that's it for me.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Zombie.
Bye.
Bye.